evening and thanks very much for joining us. I'm Brittany Ramsey. We begin tonight with the good news many in Thunder Bay have been waiting for. The local Alstom plant will be building an additional 60 streetcars for the Toronto Transit Commission. The Ontario and federal governments will each contribute $180 million to the project, and the City of Toronto itself will invest $208 million. Today, the many key players in the deal took part in several virtual announcements. Troy Charles reports.
Over $500 million of funding and 60 new streetcars. Those were the big numbers from Federal Infrastructure Minister Catherine McKenna at Wednesday's news conference, which was attended by officials across all levels of government. Local MP Marcus Pawlowski said securing new work for the plant has been his top priority since he was elected in 2019.
Having some continuity, having assured that there will be jobs there for the next number of years is certainly great. Hopefully this is just the beginning, though. Our government is investing large amounts of money in mass transit and with the line expansions with the Hamilton Mass Transit. Hopefully there will be other projects coming because I certainly know the plant needs that.
We really do believe here in Thunder Bay that we are the answer to the mass transit problems and challenges in Ontario. And we are thankful very much for the support that we have received. And we look forward to providing solutions for you, for Alstom in the years ahead.
We're doing our part to make sure that Ontario is a great place to do business and that Northwestern Ontario is a great place to do business, a great place to invest, and a great place to protect and create new jobs.
Metrolinx will also continue discussions with Alstom under their existing contract for the refurbishment of additional GO bi-level cars at the Thunder Bay plant. Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu wanted to make sure local Unifor 1075 President Dominic Pasqualino got his share of credit for the deal.
And I think even though he's not here, I do want to thank Dominic because as a strong union leader for Unifor at the local level, he certainly has been passionate despite the many challenges he's personally faced to keep workers in the front and foremost of everything that he does and everything that Unifor does here locally.
Today is an incredible day. I must say, it's not very often that I'm pleased with so many politicians all at the same time. But today I've got 568 million reasons to be very pleased.
Ontario Minister of Transportation Caroline Mulroney says the deal had to involve the facility in Thunder Bay.
The Premier wanted to make sure that there was also a component that benefited Northern Ontario. And so this is a very important part of the deal.
From Queen's Park, the Premier spoke virtually to workers on the floor of the Alstom plant after the deal was announced.
And luckily for us, we have the best manufacturing anywhere in the world, right at Alstom. It all starts with the people. The people make the company.
Delivery of the streetcars are expected to begin in 2023, but there's no word yet on when laid-off workers might be recalled. Troy Charles, TBT News.
On to COVID-19 now. After reporting 0 cases yesterday, the District Health Unit is reporting 8 new cases today. Only 1 of them is in the Thunder Bay area. 7 come from elsewhere in the district. 7 cases are due to close contact and 1 has an unknown exposure. There were also no new variant cases identified. The total case count now sits at 3,151. 31 are considered active. That's 2 more than Tuesday's 6-month low. There are 5 COVID patients currently being treated at the regional hospital. 2 are in the ICU, and the hospital is about 73% full overall. Well, some promising vaccine news as Thunder Bay's top doctor says more Pfizer and Moderna doses are on the way. That's after a significant decrease in recent weeks. This also comes from weeks of increased allocation for Southern Ontario hotspots and the province's decision to pause the rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Avery McCrae reports.
It's an effective vaccine. It works against the variant.
Thunder Bay's medical officer of health, Dr. Janet DeMille, is assuring those who did get their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine they made the right call to protect themselves and others, but understands the decision to pause the rollout.
There's this, side effect, this thrombocytopenia, this clot, that is very rare, and it has occurred in individuals, though, following that shot within about the 4 weeks after that, but it is very rare.
The halt in the rollout has left some worried of where their second dose will come from when it's their time, especially in Thunder Bay. The Moderna vaccine will likely be the answer for those who received the AstraZeneca shot for their second dose, but in recent weeks, overall vaccinations in the district have seen a decline, with more vaccines being allocated to hotspots in southern Ontario. But Dr. DeMille says that will change with more doses of the Moderna and Pfizer shots on the way.
We've gone through a couple of weeks where we've had overall lower supply. And so you saw that our numbers dropped, but I could tell you our numbers are going to be up again this week. And we hope to maintain, at that higher level in the coming weeks and months.
With at least 50% of the adult population now having received their first dose of the vaccine in the Thunder Bay district, and with the lowest active case count since the fall, the medical officer of health has continued to advocate for a regional reopening approach. Now, there are rumblings that the stay-at-home order will be extended past next week into June, and even if that happens to be the case, Dr. DeMille would like to see an exemption for local schools.
I have advocated for schools to be open and not to remain closed till the end of the school year. I think if based on our case rates, we could see the reopening of schools, but I am not sure when we're actually going to hear any further information on that.
Students in Thunder Bay have been learning remotely since the beginning of March and are hopeful to have more clarity on the province's plans by the end of the week. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Meanwhile, more than 1,000 people have signed a new online petition calling for the Thunder Bay District to be moved out of the province-wide lockdown and back into the previously used color-coded framework. Thunder Bay resident Daniel Gilberts decided to launch the petition at change.org. It calls on Premier Doug Ford to consider a regional lockdown approach. The current stay-at-home order is expected to be extended, but confirmation is pending. Gilberts says it's not fair to lump Thunder Bay in with Southern Ontario. He feels closing golf courses and outdoor spaces is doing more harm than good. And with COVID fatigue growing, Gilberts wants the district to be heard all the way down at Queen's Park.
A lot of people have been, vocal about, Thunder Bay wanting a regional lockdown approach. Our mayor, Bill Morrow, Dr. DeMille, Michael Gravel's even been in favor of regional lockdown approaches, our color-coded systems here, and going back to that color-coded approach and opening outdoor amenities and opening schools. And we need our local leaders and our government officials and our public health officials to start being more vocal about this, because what their suggestions and their recommendations are just not being heard at the moment.
In just 2 days, the petition has seen over 1,000 signatures, and Gilberts hopes that reaches several more thousand. He's planning to send the final results to political leaders and health officials. Ontario is now one of 6 provinces that have halted first doses of AstraZeneca, but that vaccine is still coming into Ontario. The province expects to receive more than 250,000 doses of AZ next week. As Colin DeMello tells us, the province still hasn't decided exactly what to do with that incoming supply.
With the AstraZeneca vaccine effectively suspended in Ontario, the province is facing the pressing question of where to go from here. The government is conceding that it does not know.
The Chief Medical Officer of Health has put a pause on administering more first doses of AstraZeneca out of an abundance of caution. And so we are waiting for the determination by Health Canada as well as NACI on the situation with respect to the VITTs.
The province says the risk of rare vaccine-induced blood clots in Ontario is now 1 in 60,000, prompting an emergency halt of AstraZeneca. But just 1 day after pausing the campaign, the province revealed it's expecting another large shipment. 250,000 doses are set to arrive next week, on top of the 50,000 that Ontario still has in stock. Those are set to expire in late May or early August, before the province is set to administer them.
We have just a very small number of AstraZeneca doses on hand, perhaps just a few doses that may expire. However, this is out of an abundance of caution because the safety and well-being of the people of Ontario has to be our top priority.
NDP leader Andrea Horwath, who received the AstraZeneca shot herself, says she, like many others, would be willing to get the second dose now.
It's something that I think the government needs to look at. If there are willing recipients and the evidence indicates that it's safe to get the second shot, then I would rather see people get that.
The government believes it has time. The AstraZeneca campaign began in March, and with the 4-month delay in doses, it has until late June to make a decision. The province is hoping that'll give Health Canada enough time to determine whether vaccines can be mixed.
to determine what should perhaps be the best second dose for people who have received AstraZeneca.
In the meantime, the government says people aged 12 to 17 can receive their first shot of the Pfizer vaccine in June, and confirmed there will not be a vaccine requirement to return to the classroom.
If the parents do not wish to have their son or daughter vaccinated and that approval is required, it won't be forced upon them.
But the vaccine could be the key to a safe reopening of schools in the fall.
At least one Thunder Bay pharmacy will soon be offering the Pfizer vaccine now that Ontario has decided to pause first doses of AstraZeneca. The province is awaiting guidance from health experts on mixing and matching vaccines. Thunder Bay's AstraZeneca supplies dried up a few weeks ago, and now pharmacists are receiving a lot of questions from AZ recipients as there has been some confusion and uncertainty. Vinay Kapoor, owner of Dawson Heights Pharmacy, says those who've already received the AstraZeneca vaccine shouldn't worry and says the decision they made was the right one.
You know, it wasn't just paused because of the clot issues. It was paused due to the abundance and availability now of Pfizer and the other mRNA vaccines. So we'll be getting Pfizer starting late next week. We're not sure of an exact date of availability, so just monitor the website. Once the vaccine comes into the store, we'll make those slots available starting probably late next week or the following week.
Kapoor says as the province opens vaccinations to younger age groups, the pharmacy will also open up more spots. He believes Thunder Bay will see a higher number of vaccinated people now that Pfizer will be the consistent offering. And the federal government has provided significant funding to the Thunder Bay Airport, allowing for some much-needed work to begin next year. The airport CEO says the work will cost about $26 million, and it'll be evenly split between the airport and the government. Corey Nordstrom has details.
$13 million is heading the way of Thunder Bay's airport to cover half of the costs of some major safety infrastructure work. Airport CEO Ed Schmidtke explains what the hefty funds will be geared towards.
Next summer, we're going to resurface our primary runway. We're going to replace the runway edge lighting. We're going to replace approach lighting that hasn't seen any major upgrades for over 20 years. And we're going to put additional runway safety ends on all 4 runway approaches.
Schmidtke gives thanks to MPs Patty Hajdu and Marcus Pulowski for their work in securing the funds for the airport. The announcement comes as passenger volumes continue to hit historic lows in Thunder Bay, now sitting at just 18% of their normal level. The airport CEO says this project was something they had been aiming to complete in the next 3 years, and this assistance from Ottawa gives their long-term finances a brighter outlook.
Everything points to, because of a very slow start to the year, that we're going to lose money again in 2021. So the issue then becomes, if you have safety-related work you're supposed to do, but you're not making any money, how are you going to fund that and make sure you do it before there are any kind of reductions in service due to crumbling infrastructure?
Schmidtke hopes that as vaccines continue to roll out, people will be more open to traveling in the near future, as they've had to cut costs wherever possible to help out their bottom line.
We spent the winter without our crosswind runway. We just let the snow fly to reduce the amount of work we had to do and the amount of expenses we had to incur. So, you know, if you walk through the building, there currently aren't escalators because, you know, 1 in every 5 passengers aren't there.
Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
The Grand Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation made a big announcement today from his home community of Muskrat Dam First Nation.
And I couldn't think of a more appropriate place to announce my candidacy for the office of National Chief.
Fiddler's declaration comes after current Assembly of First Nations Chief Perry Bellegarde announced that he will not be running for re-election after 7 years in the role. Fiddler has served as Grand Chief of NAN's 49 First Nations since 2015. And in a video posted to Facebook, he outlined some of his main focuses going into the election.
How many times have we talked about the need for more and better housing? Access to clean, safe drinking water, especially during this pandemic. Access to quality health care, including public health and mental health, so that our children can be safe.
Nominations for the position close on June 2nd. The full slate of candidates will then be made public. The AFN election takes place on July 7th.
Well, Fiona, not much to complain about on Hump Day this Wednesday. One of the nicest days we've had in a long, long time in Thunder Bay.
Yeah, and that's